Are you ready to learn the truth about what happened in the Wild West after sunset? True survival began precisely when the last rays of light disappeared behind the endless horizon of the prairies. By day, travelers battled the sweltering heat and the grueling dusty road. But the pitch-black darkness of night brought with it entirely new and far more terrifying threats. Thick shadows concealed dangerous wild predators and treacherous bandits who often stalked the caravans. In such harsh conditions, the pioneers of the frontier did not rely on blind luck at all. They understood clearly that even the slightest mistake in the dark could cost them all their lives. Therefore, every evening, the weary travelers performed a strict set of mandatory rituals to protect their temporary camp. These reliable procedures and vital secrets were passed down by word of mouth among hundreds of thousands of brave settlers. Families arranged their heavy wagons in a protective circle and carefully assigned nightly watch duties around the campfire. Watch the video to the end, and you'll learn how 3 simple evening rules allowed the pioneers to greet the dawn in complete safety. I discovered this by accident. While studying old settler diaries, I kept coming across strange entries about rearranging furniture before bedtime. It turned out that the first and most important rule of the night concerned controlling the shadows inside the dwelling. The dim light from the hearth cast huge silhouettes of any objects onto the log walls. If you left things in the center of the room, the flickering flame made those shadows move endlessly. This created the illusion of intruders and made it very difficult to rest peacefully. Therefore, every evening, all large objects were moved right up against the walls of the hut. Chairs, wooden water barrels, and massive chests occupied their strictly designated places. The center of the room had to remain completely empty until dawn. This layout completely eliminated the appearance of frightening optical illusions on surfaces. People could confidently control the visual space of their home, even with minimal lighting. This tradition helped maintain absolute calm in conditions of complete isolation from the outside world. When the nearest neighbors were dozens of miles away, the settlers' nervous systems were working at their limit. An extra visual stimulus could cause serious stress in the middle of a long night. The empty space in the center of the room gave a sense of complete control over the situation. The inhabitants of the house knew for certain that any movement in the room would be real, not a deceptive play of light. Preparations for the night began a full hour before sunset. The settlers methodically cleared the floor of any obstacles and small household debris. In the dark, even a single wooden bucket left behind could cause a serious injury while moving about. A person who stumbled could easily drop a torch or knock over a hot pot of coals. Safety while moving about at night depended entirely on the floor being perfectly clear. It is important to understand the architectural features of early homes on the American frontier. Window openings were often covered with sturdy shutters or thick parchment instead of fragile glass. Inside, deep darkness reigned, broken only by the red glow of smoldering coals. It took quite a long time and was quite painful for the eyes to adjust to this specific thick darkness. The absence of any obstacles on the floor allowed one to move safely by memory, even with eyes closed. Interestingly, this strict rule was observed not only in permanent homes, but also in temporary camps. During long journeys in wagons, the area around the night camp was also carefully cleared. The settlers removed dry branches, large stones, and debris from their sleeping area. They created a level and safe space around themselves for moving about in the dark. The habit of monitoring one's surroundings quickly became second nature to every pioneer. This ritual took no more than 15 minutes, but its importance for survival was immense. It created a clear boundary between the day's hard hustle and bustle and the time for nighttime rest. Psychologically, this helped the settlers switch gears and relax after exhausting physical labor. Perfect order in the home reflected order in their thoughts and gave them a sense of confidence in the future. People fell asleep knowing that their fragile shelter was fully prepared for the night. Today, such precautions may seem completely unnecessary, but back then, they were a way of life. It's interesting to see how this historical topic is perceived in different corners of our modern world. Where are you watching from? And do you agree that strict order in the home affects inner peace? Please share your thoughts on this in the comments below this video. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to learn more about the real lives of the pioneers of the Wild West. Are you ready for the shocking truth? The second nighttime rule was a complete ban on open, bright fires after sunset. Settlers never left large burning logs in the stone hearth while they slept. Open fires posed a massive and uncontrollable threat to the wooden structures of the frontier. Instead, they used a complex technique called heat sealing to preserve the necessary warmth until morning. The essence of this ancient method lay in a special way of covering smoldering hot coals. Before going to sleep, all large pieces of wood were removed from the fireplace and thoroughly doused with water. The remaining hot coals were raked into a single dense pile in the very center of the large hearth. They were generously covered with a thick layer of gray ash, which completely blocked oxygen access. This reliable ash cushion prevented the coals from reigniting, but perfectly maintained their high temperature. In the morning, the owners simply had to stir the ash with a poker and add dry kindling. A light puff on the red embers instantly brought the hearth back to life without the use of a flint. This saved a tremendous amount of time and effort during the early, frosty morning hours. Striking a fire with flint in a tinder box was always a long and very tedious process. Preserving the evening embers was considered a mark of a good host and a reliable guarantee of a warm morning. The ashes served as an ideal natural insulator for the vital hearth. They very slowly released the stored heat into the living space throughout the frosty night. The house did not cool down too sharply, but maintained a stable and quite comfortable temperature. Without this practice, the morning frost inside the hut could be just as severe as outside. The temperature drop had a devastating effect on fragile supplies and the health of all the inhabitants. During severe winter blizzards, this strict rule became truly critical. A strong wind in the stone chimney could easily fan the hot coals left unattended. Covered with a thick layer of ash, the hearth was completely impervious to sudden gusts of wind from the chimney. The draft of cold air passed high above the coals, causing absolutely no uncontrolled ignition. This ensured that the wooden house would withstand even the harshest and longest snowstorms. Experienced pioneers knew how to unerringly determine the quality of wood for slow smoldering at night. Hardwoods, such as mighty oak or hickory, produced the longest lasting and hottest embers. Softwoods like pine or spruce burned too quickly and failed to retain heat until morning. During the day, settlers would set aside thick, even logs of hardwood specifically for evening use. Choosing the right firewood always ensured the reliable and uninterrupted operation of the fire. This simple technology had been well known to people for many millennia. However, it was on the vast expanses of the American frontier that it became a matter of daily physical survival. Far from civilization, the loss of one's only home to fire was tantamount to certain death. Strict adherence to the rules of fire management became a universal and unquestionable law for all settlements. It reliably combined the centuries-old experience of generations with the harsh reality of life on the edge of the known world. Think about it. Could you prepare your hearth for the night with the same meticulousness every evening? The cost of any mistake in such harsh conditions was too high to allow even the slightest carelessness. This nightly ritual required immense self-discipline and an intuitive understanding of the physics of the process. Every tiny detail was crucial for successfully retaining vital heat. In the next chapter, you will learn how ordinary water was miraculously transformed into the primary tool for nighttime safety. The hidden truth that everyone keeps quiet about lies in a very special use of water. The third night rule was the most unusual and striking invention of the pioneer era. They learned to use clean water not for drinking, but as a kind of early warning system. Before going to sleep, wide metal basins filled to the brim with well water were placed on the smooth floor. This primitive but incredibly sensitive device worked far more reliably than any complex mechanism. The principle behind this unique water radar was based on the transmission of vibrations through the ground and floors. Any heavy footsteps around the wooden hut were immediately transmitted to the building's massive foundation. The thin metal basins resonated, and tiny ripples instantly appeared on the perfectly smooth surface of the water. In the absolute silence of the house at night, the water might even splash lightly against the metal edges of the basin. This barely perceptible rhythmic sound unfailingly roused the keenly sleeping and ever-vigilant pioneers. The placement of these water traps was always a carefully thought out and calibrated process. One basin was always placed directly by the main entrance door on a sturdy level surface. The second metal vessel was usually placed near the largest window or against the solid back wall. This clever arrangement allowed them to detect the slightest vibrations coming from all sides of the log structure. The settlers could pinpoint the direction of an approaching threat even before it reached their doorstep. Metal containers were best suited for this important purpose due to their unique acoustic properties. Thin copper and ordinary tin effectively transmitted sound waves and amplified the water's vibrations many times over. During the harsh winter months, the water warning system required a special and very important modification. To prevent the water from freezing during the long night, a large amount of coarse salt was added to the metal basins. The concentrated salt solution remained liquid even during severe frosts inside a poorly heated room. This allowed the water radar to function smoothly year-round, completely regardless of weather conditions. The ingenuity of these simple settlers easily overcame any climatic obstacles that arose. Interestingly, experienced people could unerringly determine the source of the vibration based on the nature of the ripples. A fine, very frequent tremor on the water's surface always indicated the approach of a group of people on foot. Sharp, rhythmic, and strong splashes clearly signaled the heavy footsteps of a horse or a loaded wagon. A steady and smooth swaying of the water indicated strong gusts of wind beyond the sturdy walls. The water served as a universal and accurate interpreter of the language of vibrations for all the vigilant frontier dwellers. As morning came, these basins were carefully put away, and the water was used sparingly for household needs. The following night, the entire preparation procedure was repeated exactly with impeccable and familiar regularity. No sensible pioneer ever went to sleep without setting up their reliable water detectors. This simple mechanical action granted precious minutes to prepare for absolutely any unforeseen situation. A forewarned person always had a huge advantage over any possible nighttime surprise. Even during long and arduous journeys in wagons, this practice was never forgotten. At nighttime stops, ordinary metal mugs filled with clean water were placed directly on the wooden wheels of the wagons. Any movement of the vehicle immediately caused a distinct splash and instantly woke the person on duty. The water worked flawlessly and required absolutely no complex mechanisms for its ongoing maintenance. It was an ideal and ingenious survival tool in conditions of a complete lack of complex technology. The ingenuity of the pioneers always inspires sincere admiration and deep respect. They were masters at transforming the most ordinary elements of daily life into sophisticated safety systems. The experience of these resilient people demonstrates the superiority and incredible flexibility of the human practical mind. If you enjoyed this amazing fact about real life on the frontier, be sure to like this video. Your support helps us find more unique stories. Share the link to this video with your friends so they can learn these amazing historical secrets too. Guess what happened next? After installing the water radars, it was always time to thoroughly seal the windows and doors. This important step in the evening preparations was aimed at protecting against the harsh weather conditions of the Great Plains. Ordinary iron latches were completely insufficient for retaining heat and blocking strong hurricane-force winds. The settlers used a complex system of wooden braces to secure all openings incredibly reliably. Wooden beams were installed at a right angle, tightly blocking the massive doors from the inside. The evening fortification process always began at the main entrance to the log dwelling. A massive oak plank was carefully laid across the door leaf into special, sturdy forged grooves. Then a sturdy, heavy wooden wedge was forcefully driven between this thick plank and the floor. This created an incredibly rigid and monolithic structure capable of withstanding absolutely any force of nature. The wind blowing fiercely from outside only drove the wedge deeper into the groove, further reinforcing the door. The window shutters required no less attention during the evening preparations for the house. From the outside, they were tightly secured with massive metal hooks or very thick leather straps. From the inside, all the gaps between the wooden shutters and the frame were carefully stuffed with tightly twisted burlap. This coarse fabric served as an excellent, dense barrier against icy drafts and fine step dust. The windows turned into completely soundproof, impenetrable walls, protecting the fragile comfort and warmth of the home. A particular and constant problem was the fluctuating natural moisture content of the wood. At night, the temperature dropped sharply and drastically, and the wooden structures began to contract and warp. Doors that closed perfectly tightly during the day could form huge, cold gaps by midnight. A system of wedges and struts effectively compensated for this inevitable natural deformation of the material. The house always remained securely sealed, completely independent of the physics of the wood and the changing weather. Mandatory evening preparations were also regularly carried out in attics and on flat roofs. Hatches leading to the roof were weighed down with very heavy stones or massive sacks of grain. A strong gust of wind could very easily tear off the lightweight wooden hatch cover and quickly chill the entire house. The heavy load ensured the absolute stability of all roof elements until morning. Checking these vital loads was a mandatory and indispensable part of every evening patrol of the premises. This entire well-thought-out system of fortifications created a lasting sense of absolute isolation from the outside world. Locked from the inside, the house turned into a true and impregnable wooden fortress every night. Neither strong winds nor powerful sandstorms could disturb the fragile peace of its inhabitants. However, such complete sealing had its significant drawbacks in the form of very stuffy air. The settlers constantly had to seek the perfect balance between retaining heat and proper ventilation. Dismantling all these fortifications early in the morning took up a great deal of the owner's precious time. The wedges were knocked out with special wooden mallets, and the heavy struts were neatly stacked in a corner. The house opened up to the world again, fully prepared for another long day and new physical challenges. Every night inevitably required the erection of barricades, and every morning traditionally began with their dismantling. This endless and arduous cycle became the main rhythm of life in the boundless expanses of the frontier. Do you think you could sleep peacefully in a completely barricaded, windowless room? Life in such confined conditions required tremendous endurance and strong nerves. In the next chapter, you'll learn how the pioneers successfully coped with the consequences of this nighttime isolation. They found an ingenious way to make the night air completely safe to breathe. Their engineering solutions are striking in their simplicity and incredible effectiveness. Completely sealing the room in the evening inevitably led to a serious problem of stagnant air. People's breathing and the embers smoldering in the hearth very quickly depleted the oxygen supply in the small hut. High humidity from the vapors settled abundantly as cold, sticky condensation on the log walls. Living in such an artificial climate was extremely uncomfortable and very harmful to lung health. Therefore, the settlers developed a unique system of invisible microventilation for nighttime. The key and most important element of this system was the large stone hearth itself. The chimney functioned as a massive and powerful exhaust pipe, drawing stale air out into the street. The heat from the coals, smoldering beneath the ashes, created a constant and steady draft up the pipe. This physical process occurred continuously, very slowly renewing the atmosphere inside the enclosed room. The chimney was never completely closed, always leaving a small, vital gap in the cast iron damper. Specially and skillfully left technical gaps were used to allow fresh air to flow in. In the darkest corner of the floor, farthest from the bed, one long gap was intentionally left uncaulked. Cold air from the street seeped through this narrow opening very slowly and in measured doses. It spread across the floor and gradually warmed up, moving continuously toward the warm fireplace. This created a constant but completely invisible circulation of air masses within the enclosed space. Sometimes, to lightly scent the air, they used dry bundles of local wild steppe herbs. Wormwood and fragrant sage were carefully hung just below the ceiling, not far from the heat source. The heated air slowly carried the healing essential oils throughout the small area of the enclosed house. These scents were excellent at counteracting the stuffy air of the enclosed space and calmed the nervous system. The herbs served as a natural air freshener and a mild remedy in the harsh conditions of the frontier. The quality of the indoor air directly affected the duration and restorative depth of sleep. In a well-ventilated cabin, people fell asleep much faster and felt more alert. A lack of oxygen always led to severe morning headaches and intense chronic fatigue. Therefore, the very fine-tuning of nighttime ventilation was akin to a true architectural art. Experience came exclusively through long trials and painful errors during the very first winters. The temperature difference between the cold floor and the ceiling could easily reach several dozen degrees. Icy drafts constantly swept across the floor from specially left ventilation slots. The warmest and most stale air always accumulated under the high ceiling. This physical stratification was always taken into account when arranging sleeping areas in the room. Beds were always raised on tall, sturdy legs to avoid contact with the icy drafts. Managing the invisible air currents was an extremely important part of the evening household routine. Properly adjusted ventilation guaranteed a completely safe stay inside the airtight wooden box of the house. Valuable knowledge about the physics of air was passed down to new generations of builders on the endless frontier. Every metal latch and every wooden slit had a specific purpose in this complex system. The house literally breathed in unison with its inhabitants, ensuring them a long and healthy life. What the government doesn't want you to know concerns the hidden history of daily survival. We're talking about the rigorous preparation of personal belongings for a possible emergency awakening in the dark. The settlers never scattered their work clothes haphazardly before their long-awaited sleep. They always folded them in a strict geometric order next to the wooden bed. Each item had to be placed so that it could be put on without fail in complete darkness. Shoes were always placed with the toes pointing strictly toward the exit from the dark room. The tops of the tall leather boots were carefully flared out so that the foot could slide in easily and quickly. Foot cloths or thick woolen socks were hung directly on the tops of these prepared boots. In the event of a sudden alarm, a person did not waste a single second searching for the right boot. This strict rule was instilled in everyone from the very first day of life on the frontier of civilization. Outerwear was placed on a nearby chair or chest in a specific and unchanging manner. The sleeves of the thick jacket were turned out so that one could instantly slip one's hands into them. Belts and leather suspenders were unfastened in advance and laid neatly on top of the warm clothing. The process of getting dressed always took a matter of seconds and resembled a dance practiced to the point of automaticity. Muscular memory perfectly replaced vision in the pitch-black, impenetrable darkness of night. This strict arrangement of items remained unchanged for many years in every home on the frontier. Changing the established order was strictly forbidden, as it disrupted the ingrained muscle memory. A guest staying overnight was required to strictly follow the same rules for arranging equipment. Standardizing habits allowed different people to act in unison, even under extreme stress. Order reliably prevented the chaos that could easily arise from a sudden awakening. During nighttime dust storms or sudden drops in temperature, clothing became true armor. A thick jacket quickly thrown on provided reliable protection against hypothermia if the roof blew off the house. Sturdy leather boots protected the feet from shards or sharp splinters when wooden shutters shattered. Being fully prepared to face the elements was the key to successfully withstanding the wild. Time was always strictly against them, and they had to conserve it in every way possible. It is interesting to observe the evolution of this useful habit among itinerant workers and free hobos. Spending the night in cold freight train cars, they applied the very same principles of organizing their space. Their meager belongings were always laid out in strict and perfect order next to their makeshift sleeping spot. The need to be ready to jump off a moving train at any moment required flawless organization of their gear. The boundless frontier imposed its harsh laws on absolutely every category of traveler. The ability to get dressed quickly and blindly was very often practiced as a kind of regular training. People would close their eyes and try to quickly find all the necessary gear using only their sense of touch. Such rehearsals helped quickly identify flaws in the arrangement of items and correct them in a timely manner. Fortunately, mistakes made during such training had no fatal consequences. In a real emergency, every movement was perfectly timed and precise down to the millimeter. Have you ever wondered how long it would take you to get ready in pitch darkness? Experience shows that without preparation, it takes at least 5 long minutes. In the next chapter, we'll discuss how pioneers designed their beds to protect against the cold. This information will forever change your usual perception of true home comfort. Knowledge of past technologies forces us to take a fresh look at our modern, cozy way of life. Setting up a sleeping area in the Wild West was a true and complex engineering feat. The classic pioneer bed had none of the metal springs or orthopedic bases we are accustomed to. Instead, a complex system of crisscrossing ropes was used, tightly stretched over a massive wooden frame. These ropes formed a tight mesh that inevitably sagged over time under the heavy weight of the bodies. Regularly tightening this rope base was a fixed part of every household's weekly routine. Mattresses consisted of huge sacks made of very thick canvas, stuffed with dry plant materials. The most popular and affordable filling was corn husks, which were abundant after the harvest. The husks held their shape well, did not clump at all, and provided very good thermal insulation from below. Before going to bed, the mattress had to be thoroughly fluffed by hand to distribute the filling evenly. This action was excellent for removing hard lumps and making the bed more even and comfortable. Wealthy families could afford mattresses tightly stuffed with goose or soft duck down. Down comforters were incredibly warm and soft, creating the illusion of a truly luxurious rest. However, such a mattress always required much more complex care and regular drying in the sun. In constantly damp conditions, the down could become damp very quickly and completely lose its insulating properties. Therefore, the vast majority of pioneers preferred practical and very cheap corn husks. During severe frosts, they brought special ceramic hot water bottles or simply very hot bricks into bed. The bricks were heated in the evening fire of the stone hearth and then tightly wrapped in several layers of cloth. This improvised radiator was placed at the feet, where it slowly gave off heat until morning. Thick-walled ceramic vessels were filled with hot water and used successfully in the same way. Such incredibly simple methods helped people survive the harshest winter nights on the Great Plains. Blankets were made primarily from thick sheep's wool and were true works of weaving art. The patchwork technique allowed for the creation of very dense and heavy blankets from old scraps of fabric. The multiple layers of the blankets created air pockets that excellently retained body heat. The heavier the blanket, the more reliably it protected the sleeper from the piercing, icy cold. Sometimes the weight of bedding reached several dozen kilograms per adult. For nomadic workers and hunters in the Rocky Mountains, sleeping arrangements were entirely different. They used sleeping bags sewn from thick bison hides with the fur facing strictly inward. These heavy bags were spread directly on the ground, atop a thick layer of coniferous brushwood or dry grass. The hide provided reliable protection against any dampness from the ground and remained completely windproof. A nomadic lifestyle always required maximum mobility while maintaining very high thermal efficiency. During the day, the wooden bed became the central and most important element of the small hut's interior. The bedding was carefully made, and the taut ropes were checked for strength using a special wooden wrench. The neat appearance of the sleeping area always attested to the hard work and strict discipline of the household's owners. The bed served as the main place to sit during daytime work, replacing the absent sofas. Therefore, its construction had to easily withstand significant loads under constant use. Sleeping technology developed rapidly alongside the relentless push of the frontier into the unexplored West. Each new climate zone always required its own adaptations in the design of the sleeping area. Settlers constantly exchanged blueprints and ideas, continually improving their domestic technologies. Knowledge of how to properly tension the ropes and stuff the mattress was vital. A comfortable night's sleep was not a luxury, but an absolute necessity for the hard physical labor of the next day. Preserving food was another critically important and difficult task every evening. The hot climate during the day and the very sharp drop in temperature at night created ideal conditions for food to spoil quickly. Refrigerators did not exist, so settlers relied solely on physics and natural ventilation. All perishable foods had to be properly placed within the home before nightfall. Any mistake in storage could easily deprive a family of food for several long weeks to come. One of the frontier's key inventions was a special suspended wooden cabinet for storing supplies. These wooden boxes with small mesh doors were attached to ceiling beams with very sturdy ropes. Air circulated freely around the food, preventing the formation of destructive mold and dampness. Being suspended ensured maximum insulation from the damp floor and the overly warm areas around the hearth. Every evening, fresh baked goods and dried meat were always placed in this cool storage space. Drinking water also required special attention at the very end of a hard day's work. Wooden buckets were filled with very fresh water from the well and covered with clean canvas napkins. The fabric reliably protected the water from dust and soot floating in the air from the smoldering hearth. The buckets were placed in the coolest part of the room, as far away as possible from the fireplace and the rays of the morning sun. Access to clean water at night was critically important in the event of a fire or sudden thirst. To keep milk fresh, people often used a method of natural evaporative cooling. Clay jugs of milk were wrapped in a wet, thick cloth and placed in a light draft in the hallway. Water evaporated very quickly from the surface of the cloth, drawing heat from the jug and cooling its contents. This physical process was particularly effective on dry, windy evenings across the vast Great Plains. In the morning, the milk was always fresh and cool, ready for consumption or processing. The preparation of dried meat supplies continued uninterrupted, especially during the quiet hours of the night. Strips of beef or wild venison were carefully hung on special frames just below the ceiling of the hut. Smoke from the hearth slowly enveloped the meat, drying it and infusing it with wood-derived preservatives. At night, when the flames died down, the temperature near the ceiling remained absolutely ideal for the even drying of the meat. By early morning, the process had reached the desired stage, and the dried meat was stored in the canvas sacks. Salt was the most valuable resource and always required truly obsessive humidity control. Bags of salt were very often hung near the chimney itself, where the air was driest. If the salt did get damp, it was immediately spread out in a thin layer on flat iron trays. These trays were placed next to the evening embers to quickly evaporate the moisture that had accumulated during the day. Dry salt was critically necessary for preserving absolutely all other types of food on the frontier. Leftovers from dinner were never left on the table until the following morning. Cooked food was always transferred to ceramic pots with very tight, heavy clay lids. The pots were carefully stored in the coolest corners of the room or in a special niche in the wall. Thoroughly clearing the table was a fixed part of the mandatory evening ritual for maintaining strict hygiene in the home. Perfect cleanliness was the only way to prevent the rapid spread of stomach infections in the settlement. The ability to distribute food for the night competently and without error distinguished an experienced housewife from a novice. Every shelf and every corner in a wooden house had its own unique microclimate, suitable for different purposes. Studying the temperature zones of one's hut was a very complex science, mastered exclusively through experience. Preserving the harvest and supplies was a continuous process that never stopped for a single moment. Night was not a time for supplies to rest, but a direct continuation of the technological process of their storage. Lighting the dwelling in the evening was a very complex technological and economic challenge. Before the invention of kerosene lamps, pioneers used homemade tallow candles and primitive oil lamps. Making candles from melted animal fat was an incredibly labor-intensive process that took entire days. Therefore, every single source of light was worth its weight in gold and used with the utmost economy. In the evening, only a single candle was lit, around which the whole family gathered to finish their chores. The placement of candles indoors was strictly governed by strict fire safety rules. Lamps were never placed near straw mattresses, wooden floors, or dry clothing. They were placed exclusively on the sturdy tables or on a stone shelf above the main hearth of the hut. An accidental fall of a candle could very easily lead to the instantaneous ignition of the entire interior of a wooden house. Monitoring open flames was an unconditional reflex ingrained from the very first days of life on the frontier. Just before going to sleep, there was a mandatory ritual of extinguishing absolutely all sources of artificial light. Blowing out a candle was considered extremely improper, as the smoldering wick continued to smoke for a long time. Instead, the flame was extinguished with the utmost care using a special metal cap that completely cut off the oxygen supply. This instantly stopped the burning process and kept the wick in perfect condition for the next use. Every drop of fat saved always meant an extra minute of precious light during the long winter evenings. On moonless nights, the hut was instantly plunged into an absolutely impenetrable, very thick darkness. The windows without glass let in absolutely no starlight, and the barricaded doors cut off any glare from outside. Orientation in the enclosed space was carried out exclusively by memory and very carefully by touch. This is precisely why the ideal order of things described in the previous chapters was of such immense practical importance. Daylight hours were used for hard work, while darkness became a time of absolute physical rest. A rare exception was made only during severe storms or unforeseen emergencies. A bat-style lantern on duty, with a very sturdy glass shade, was ready to be lit immediately. Unlike an open candle, the lantern was completely unaffected by drafts and could illuminate the path right on the street. Its thick glass was regularly wiped clean of soot to ensure maximum brightness of the beam in the thick darkness. This lantern was the main symbol of safety and hope during the most difficult moments of the settlers' nightlife. Sometimes so-called resin torches were successfully used as an alternative light source. Thin, long splinters of very resinous pine produced an extremely bright but short-lived and smoky flame. They were used exclusively for very quick tasks, when it was frankly a waste to light a full-fledged, expensive candle. The splinter was clamped tightly in a special iron holder, beneath which a basin of water was always placed to catch sparks. This primitive light served as an excellent and cheap substitute for wax candles under conditions of the strictest resource conservation. The total conservation of light shaped a unique rhythm of life for numerous frontier settlements. People went to bed shortly after sunset, strictly following nature's biological clock. Long and noisy evening gatherings were a rarity, permitted only on major holidays or during important events. Energy was conserved just as carefully as food, firewood, or the purest drinking water. This highly rational approach allowed people to survive and thrive under conditions of the most severe resource scarcity. Studying ancient methods of lighting provides us with an important key to understanding the psychology of people from the past. For them, darkness was not merely the absence of light, but a physically palpable barrier within a confined space. Conquering the night with the help of a timid flame was a constant and very difficult struggle of attrition. Every lit candle symbolized civilization's daily victory over the wild and unpredictable nature of the boundless frontier. Light was a true luxury for which one had to work very hard throughout the entire short daylight hours. The final stage of the evening routine was always a final patrol of the entire area around the log dwelling. One of the adult family members would take the duty lantern and step out into the deepening, cold twilight. This inspection never tolerated haste and was conducted with the utmost attention to the smallest details of the surroundings. The reliability of the iron locks on all farm buildings and food storage sheds was thoroughly checked. A bolt on the barn door accidentally left open could easily cost the settlers their entire autumn harvest. During this inspection, all agricultural tools and iron implements were examined very carefully. Heavy pitchforks, shovels, and rakes were neatly stored under a shed or locked in a special tool shed. Metal left on damp ground would rust very quickly from the night dew and become completely unusable. Wooden handles would quickly crack from constant fluctuations in humidity and lose their original strength. Tools were the most essential means of survival, and caring for them was always a top priority. A neatly stacked pile of firewood was also always inspected before a long night's rest. The supply of dry firewood for the morning fire was carefully moved closer to the main entrance of the house and covered with a canvas. This reliably ensured that even after a nighttime downpour, the wood would remain dry and usable. Leaving the firewood completely exposed was a completely unjustified risk in the changeable weather of the Great Plains. Morning comfort and warmth depended directly on the quality of the evening preparation of the fuel supply. A careful inspection of the roof and walls from the outside helped to identify damage from the day's wind or hail in a timely manner. Any new cracks discovered were quickly sealed with sticky clay or bundles of dry grass before complete darkness set in. Large fallen tree branches were dragged away from the structure so they would not pose a threat during another strong gust. The area around the house had to be completely cleared for a good view from the small windows. Safety always began far beyond the threshold of the hut's living quarters. An important part of the ritual was the careful observation of weather signs at sunset. Experienced pioneers could read cloud formations and wind direction far better than any barometer. A bright crimson sunset foreshadowed very strong winds, while a clear starry sky promised sharp, cold night frosts. This valuable knowledge allowed them to make adjustments to the cabin's preparations, adding more wedges to the doors or piling sand under the threshold. An accurate weather forecast completely determined the survival strategy for the next 12 hours of the night. Once a person returned home, the front door was locked with absolutely every bolt, once and for all. Opening it before dawn was strictly discouraged under any circumstances, except in the event of a fire. This complete isolation created a psychological barrier between the safe home and the unpredictable, dark wasteland. The people inside instantly transformed into a single, well-coordinated mechanism, united solely by the common goal of survival. Absolute mutual trust and a strict division of roles made this wooden fortress impregnable. The very last moments before bedtime were always devoted to quiet conversation and reflecting on the long day that had passed. Plans for tomorrow were calmly discussed, supplies were checked, and tasks were distributed among all the adults. By closely studying their way of life, we finally understand the true value of the things and comforts we take for granted. Water, warmth, light, and safety always came at the cost of colossal and exhausting daily efforts. Their nighttime rules are a pure distillation of practical experience, generously paid for with sweat and incredible unyielding patience. The architecture of their daily life was strictly subordinated to a single goal: preserving life on the edge of the vast, untamed world. They didn't just build wooden houses, they created perfect machines for survival in extreme conditions. The history of the settlement of the American frontier is, first and foremost, a story of the triumph of the human mind over the elements. An exceptionally pragmatic approach to organizing space and time enabled ordinary pioneers to conquer this harsh continent. Their evening rituals may seem overly paranoid, but it was precisely these rituals that reliably ensured the success of the entire Western expansion. The memory of these unique traditions has been preserved forever in old diaries and archival records from those remarkable years. This invaluable knowledge is an integral and vital part of the cultural heritage of the era of great migrations. We've only touched on a small fraction of the amazing practical techniques that helped pioneers survive on the frontier. Behind each of these simple rules lies incredible human ingenuity and an utterly unyielding will to live. Which of these harsh lessons do you think remain relevant even in our modern safe times? Suggest topics in the comments for future historical videos about the daily lives of settlers that you'd like to see. And be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss new exciting explorations of the history of the Wild West.